That's
what bothers me about this.
They opened up this tier of AI because from the first movie to the second movie, the replicants kind of changed what strata they were on. In the first movie, it's like they're just slaves, and it's actually almost like they kind of are robotic in a way.
Replicants?
Because like there's a person who engineers the eyes.
When they didn't have implanted memories to begin with, so they were a lot more like robotic and unstable and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's why they say in the first one they say they implant memories to make their emotions more stable and stuff.
But Rachel is the first one who gets implanted memories.
Okay.
She's a prototype one. That like Roy Batty and all the other ones.
They're next to 6. She's like a 7.
They have 4-year lifespans and they don't get implanted memories, so they're all basically like psychopaths because they can't empathize.
So in this one though, they're all citizens. They're not illegal. They're not getting hunted down. They're not just for working off-world.
Well, they're not citizens per se. But they're embedded in.
Sure.
Yeah,
but
they live among us.
They're slaves.
But they've also, part of the reason why Wallace is successful is he's been able to make replicants that have no free will, that they are fully bought into the slave system, and they don't care. They're this, and that's why they're allowed to exist. Whereas the old Tyrell ones need to be eliminated.
And it's so awesome. The beginning of Kay's arc is him in that scene that you were describing with Joshi, where he says, "I've never retired something with a soul before." When he's directed to go kill the child.
Yeah.
And you can see, that, like, why does that matter to him? It's because he's internalized the prejudice. He's like, I am different.
Right.
The replicants are not human. We are on a different level. We deserve
And you
less.
see that when he's walking through the police department and he's, like, ducking his head as people are like, fucking skin job.
You know what I love? It's cool that there's, like, slang words, like calling him a skin job, but it's better when there's more than one slang. And he goes home to his apartment and someone wrote Skinner on his door.
Yeah.
That's awesome when there's, like, variation on it.
Speaking of derogatory things, Jared Leto.
What do you mean?
Fuck Jared Leto.
It's a slur.
You don't like him?
Jared Leto's name is a slur.
He's been canceled.
Really?
Yeah, for
For his
grooming underage girls.
and like his
And
cult?
for being gone during the coronavirus.
Oh, I don't know about that.
He went on a retreat.
This was the first.
But wait, doesn't Jared Leto, isn't he in something sweet that's coming out soon?
I didn't know Jared Leto was canceled.
He's like James Franco canceled.
Oh,
Where
so
you're
like
like,
not really canceled.
Yeah, like we should cancel him, but
Like he's late night.
late night.
He's late. He's late night now.
They moved into a Tuesday slot.
There was like a cancel threshold. He didn't get to it.
I found this was the first time I rewatched the movie, and I didn't absolutely love him because before I would have said he was perfect for that casting, and that he was so he's perfect as this like weird, creepy, smooth, weirdo
With
persona.
his like God.
Yeah, God complex.
He's like,
and remind
I'm
me to
taking
come back
this-
to him versus Tyrell later. But
Okay.
I found on this rewatch, I didn't enjoy him as much, and so I actually looked up who the original person who was supposed to play that role.
Will Smith.
David Bowie.
Oh, I didn't know that. But
And
he died.
But I was like, oh, that would have been good. It got me
That would've
thinking,
been
and I was
good.
like, who would I have preferred in that role? And I thought of 2 other people, and I want to hear what you guys think. Either Javier Bardem or Mads Mikkelsen. And Mads Mikkelsen is my top choice for that role.
Ooh. As much as I would love to see Mads Mikkelsen in that role, I feel like it's too on the nose for him.
I agree. And I think only Jared Leto would have done what he did with it, which is way more out there and creative.
Yeah.
Only Jared Leto is going to sit across from Harrison Ford and scooch up in his chair and start and just like blindly grope at his thigh and grab him. And you know, it's like
I can see Jared Leto doing that because he's a freak.
yeah, he was great. And I love that he wears these jammies. I love that he lives in this like all wooden lair because wood is like people haven't even seen trees before, and his whole house is made with it, and he just wears jammies.
They're nice jammies.
I think when I had the same thought about Jared Leto because where I was like, oh, this is just like him trying to get some cool role that like he thinks is gonna show off his acting or whatever because he's freaking God's gift to man. And like at that point, when in the first scene where he comes up, Lauren and I were watching it together, and she was like, "Oh, fuck Jared Leto."
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing that I only picked up on this rewatch, because I rewatched Blade Runner, the OG one, fairly recently, is the compare and contrast between Tyrell and
Neander.
Wallace. Is it supposed to sound like Neanderthal? Is that like the point of it?
He got
I
bullied
doubt
in
it.
school for that. You know he did.
Neander? That's why he
That's why he had to
he's
be
like, I have to
God.
make my own friends.
Yeah.
So speaking of his lair, and it's like this huge open space with like very simple shapes, elegant light, and he's someone who's like obsessed with becoming a god. He's not obsessed with creating life as much as he is with himself becoming a god, whereas Tyrell in the original wasn't obsessed about being God. He was obsessed with creating life. And when you look at his space, it's actually much more filled, and there's a lot of organic shapes. And like in like a normal sci-fi film, chess pieces are going to be very like sci-fi, straight edges, very
Right.
kind of whatever. But in that one, it's very ornate, classical things, and like his whole apartment is filled with lush colors, classical shapes, organic figures.
Right.
And it tells a story very like simply between those two men of one who was wanting to create life, and that's why he created replicants that could create life, versus a man who was obsessed with himself becoming God.
So you think Tyrell's the good guy?
No one's a good guy.
Okay.
They're all bad.
Well, one went bankrupt and the other
Kay's a
didn't,
good guy.
He's not a guy.
He's not your buddy, guy.
He's a guy. Hey, I'm not your buddy, Kay.
Man, what do you guys think of that scene where the replicant is born and Jared Leto
Just disposes of her.
disposes of her? What do you guys think?
Crazy scene.
It's a great scene.
The performance of the actor, of the
Oh, yeah.
replicant, I don't even know her name.
Right.
So underrated. It's so awesome how she kind of comes online. Like, she's just kind of breathing and gasping like
That
a
was
baby
so
deer.
cool.
And then she eventually is like he's groping her face and she's not even opening her eyes yet. It's
That's
it's
like
awesome.
that's the type of performance you see in a movie where you're just like, oh, this is straight up. This is art. Like this actor is an artist,
Yeah,
because
she
it's
must be a
like
dancer.
you have to think about like, okay, we're showing this scene where this fake human gets born, quote unquote, and you have to like pretend to be like this basically like a fetus learning how to that you just got born into this world, and it's just like, how do you interpret that? It was just great. She's just kind of like spasming
Yeah.
and just kind of like slowly sort of learns to lift her head and stuff. It was just great.
Plus, she has to be in that vacuum sealed bag and slurp out
Yeah.
and hit the grate.
Man, I have to be honest with myself and say that emotionally the setup in this universe just like bothers me. And it's supposed to bother you. But I'm just like, man, what did I what did I write?
What do you mean? I want to know here.
Well, it's slavery. It's like slavery comes back.
Yeah.
But it's even worse because we're not even like taking existing people and enslaving them. We are creating custom built people and enslaving them.
Well, that's exactly why cognitive dissonance will allow it. That's exactly why people would be like, "Oh, this is fine."
well, okay, and
They're
that's
different than us.
That's the question for me, I guess, is because like would humans ever get to the point, and that's I have to balance this movie as like this takes place in the future, because obviously the original was made in 1982 or something, and it portrayed 2019 as like we in 30 years or 40 years we'll master synthetic humans or whatever. In the original portrayed what like could conceivably be at the time a real future, but now we know that this is like an alternate universe.
It's an
where,
alternate timeline because Atari still exists.
Atari survives, yeah, and so it's like some cognitive dissonance for me where I'm like, okay, is this an alternate universe where we're just saying humans are absolute shit, or is this like a real universe where we're like we get worse? Because you'd like to think that we've gotten past slavery as a concept. Slavery still exists in horrible places in the world, but most decent people agree that slavery's bad. But this
You can't
portrays
take
a
that
future.
position.
It's funny. This
What do you mean?
You can't take that position because you're looking at it like, I'm here in 2020, and well, 2049 could it possibly be like this? But that doesn't make sense. You have to start from the first movie and be
Yeah.
like, if that's your starting point, if that's what 2019 is, and it continues.
Yeah, that's what I'm
20
saying.
Yeah, 2049
That's what I'm saying.
could
But
be like that.
But I'm saying I flip back and forth in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and as when I look at this as a real future, I'm like, that's fucked. That's just annoying.
Like you don't think it makes sense, or it's hopeless and you don't like it.
Both.
Okay.
I don't think it really makes sense that if we created artificial humans, that there wouldn't be like. You think that the vast majority of people would just be like, yeah, that's not a real person.
I think it really depends because on the one hand, they're trying to colonize other worlds and just the necessity of what's required there.
Yeah.
If society could just kind of recalibrate and adjust. And if it were
Everybody becomes a utilitarian.
if they were going to allow that, they would treat the replicants like we see them be treated. You would hear that they would be insulting
sure.
them and treating and subjugating them because the difference between humans and is so immaterial. The difference between
exactly.
humans and so they have to just be so mean to them to kind of like manufacture this difference.
I know. It just bothers me. But like I just have to shut off that empathetic part of my brain to like appreciate this movie, because it's just like,
Well, this is a world run by corporations where
Yeah,
like there is
yeah.
no government. It's just corporations. Like Wallace is essentially the government of the world.
Just
I
look how
think
big his building is.
Yeah, I think that's what you.
Yeah.
I love that one shot of the miniatures when you see what was the Tyrell pyramids in the original that were huge, and then you see the Wallace building just dwarf it,
right,
10 times bigger. It's so cool.
And all of that is just like on top of this understory of skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Like it's so huge. And I love how they use bigatures.
Yeah.
For bigature. They're miniatures, but they're huge. Just
physical
like
models?
Yeah.
Right.
Everything was in camera. Even when you're at Kay's apartment, there's a window and you can see like basically a set outside the window. Even that was
a real
Really?
apartment.
Was a set.
They built
Yeah.
the full apartment. On the other
Really?
side,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
This was an expensive movie.
One more thing I wanted to say about the environment is that's why I appreciate the fact that there is like a replicant uprising or the beginnings of one in this movie, because I'm like, sweet, I need some hope. Like I think in the original Blade Runner, I'm just like, the shit's fucked and it just stays that way. And he, like, in the end, Deckard kills Roy Batty, and maybe he learns something, maybe he doesn't.
He doesn't kill him. He dies.
He
He expires.
He's still trying to kill him, you know. Anyways, not much changes in the universe, but in this one, at least we see the beginnings of like, change can happen, and I feel like I like that.
Well, I think though that's like just like where the cultural discourse was the question posed is, are robots human? Are humans robots? And the point of that movie is for Deckard to realize how similar the replicants were to him, and that that final encounter is to be like, they were human, or they had a soul, or whatever that means.
Change, yeah.
And that's why any cut with Deckard being a replicant is fucking stupid.
Oh, you don't like it?
It's fucking stupid. Because what's the point of a movie where a replicant realizes that other replicants are just like him?
Well, he doesn't know he's a replicant.
But it doesn't make any difference.
What do you mean?
It doesn't. So the whole point of the movie is for him to chase these replicants down, and by the end realize that like they're no different from him. But if he's a replicant, they are no different from him.
But if so presumably he doesn't know he's a replicant.
No,
and neither does anyone else.
Yeah. But then like the whole point of the movie would be, okay, yeah, I am a replicant, and like that's a fun twist, like cool, yay, twist.
But couldn't it put another layer on it where it's like, because of what I assume to be true about myself, I hold all these assumptions. Then those get subverted. Whoa, I learned something. And then they get subverted again, where it's like, dude, all that was just make believe because you were a replicant yourself to begin with. It's all a social construct.
But then I think it's too much flip flopping where none of his beliefs matter, and then that's like the movie isn't about do my beliefs matter. It's about how similar he is to those people, and I think that's like a much more interesting approach when the movie's taken that way.
I do think that I agree with you that the movie is not helped by him being a replicant. So I find the whole question to be just kind of a waste of time, because it's like whether he's a replicant or not. If he is a replicant, he's not the normal type of replicant we see in the movie because he has an open-ended lifespan. All the replicants.
He would be a Nexus 7 like Rachel, if anything.
Well, I guess so. Yeah, he would be a prototype. Well, no, she had a limited lifespan.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she only lived 4 years. So if he is a replicant, he's like a super futuristic replicant, and if he's not, then nothing changes. So it's like
it's silly.
But talking about 2049, though, I love how they let this decades-old debate rage on.
Totally.
Oh, so awesome. And Neander's like, oh yeah, you fell in love with Rachel just as you were designed to. If you were designed. Close this book, you son of a...
I love it. It's brilliant. You can tell this movie was made with so much love and passion from the start. Like,
my gosh.
Like, such good thought and just passion.
And fear.
Out,
the fear of God, man. You can see Denis Villeneuve in many interviews is like, I was terrified. I didn't want to do this. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And now he's saying those exact same quotes for Dune, by the way. By the way.
I think this is the best looking movie ever. I think if people enjoyed it or not, that's up to them.
Ever?
But I think it's undeniable. This is the best looking movie ever.
It looks great.
It looks great.
The
CG is fantastic.
We watched the 4K version. Like, I've watched this on Netflix, and the thing with Netflix is it has 4K content, but does it label it, or does it just?
It does label it.
Does it label it UHD?
Wait, you
or
did
does
watch
it just
it on?
does it just say high definition?
No. There's like HD label, and then there's a 4K HDR one as well.
Okay, because I've watched it on. It was on Netflix. Like a month ago, I watched this movie a bunch on Netflix,
really?
and then last night I went to watch it, and it just wasn't on Netflix. And then David shared us on the comp that he owns, which is 4K and HDR, and it was nicer than what I was watching on Netflix. And goddamn, was it nice!
I was watching a VFX breakdown of this film. There's so much more CG than I realized. I was because they tell us that everything's in camera, everything's practical, but everything is enhanced. There is like no scene, even like the junkyard scene. It's like it's in a lot of the wide shots, maybe 30% of the frame is real and the rest is CG. And they do such an incredible job of like of mixing practical and CG that you never question.
Do you know what that set is called?
No.
It has the coolest name, Trash Mesa. The Trash Mesa.
So cool.
It is probably almost a football-sized field of rusted car parts and stuff. They got a lot of material there, literal tons of stuff. But the draw distance in the background is green screen CG.
Yeah, I was one of the things I was really focusing in on this watch was trying to find the CG seams, and like even the best movies like Endgame or whatever, like you can see the CG and like it's so overdone and so stylized. They're like that CG, that CG, that CG. In Blade Runner, it's hard.
There's one thing that stands
for me. There
out.
was 3, but give me your one.
Neander's little floaty guys, those little floaty camera fish. Yeah, those stand out.
Well, I mean, like you're like obviously those are CG because they couldn't do those practically.
Yeah, they could have had a little thing on a wire and remove the wire.
For me, the 3 was when Kay and Joy are in the rain and she grabs his hand and puts it towards her face. I could tell it was 2 separate shots that they weren't interacting. It just like didn't look right.
Right.
It was like they didn't track right or something. I said the floaty drone bots in the Wallace water office. And then when they shoot Rachel, that was so bad.
That's what I was
like,
say.
How did they do so bad on that one?
I was going to say that's the only part of the movie where I really noticed.
I want to talk about Joy and how they made Joy so sweet. You know how they did it?
No.
Because when you're watching her, you can see that she's like, you can kind of see through her sometimes. And the thing is, if she's transparent because she's like a hologram, if there's, like when you're watching a movie on a projector, the brightest value is as bright as your projector can shine, and the darkest value is just as dark as your wall or your screen is, right? So when she's in her apartment, in Kay's apartment, and she's walking around, whenever there's a light source behind her, you can see that shine through more than her. And by the way, on that set, a lot of it was practical. So they actually had lights as part of the set that are lighting the scene. And if they added any lights on top of that, they're just kind of trying to accentuate what exists in the scene. So it's super realistic. When she's in front of the window or a light, it looks different than when she's not. Although I do have to say, she switches outfits a bunch in that scene.
Right.
And one of them, she switches into like a black dress. And I don't know how that thing would display black. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
The hologram?
Whatever. Yeah. If it's is she a projected image?
Yeah, she's a hologram.
Yeah. So how's it going to display black? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I'm sure they figured it out.
Also, this I don't even have an answer for this. She lights Kay's cigarette.
I can believe that. It's just a laser pointer where like there's enough light focusing that it heats up. I think that's realistic, where a projector that could create a full body hologram has enough power if it focused to light something on fire.
Yeah.
She probably can't do that with the emanator.
No.
By the way, emanator is a great name for that little device.
I don't know. Wait, okay. That's something that bothered me a little bit because I feel like in the rest of the Blade Runner universe, you can kind of see how things work a bit. But that one was like, wait, it's in his jacket.
Yeah, I don't know.
How is it?
It's not line of sight, right? Like when they're in the rain, he's not holding it, like shining her. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Shit, this movie just became a 6.
Game of 6. No, but
yeah, bring it back down to a 9.5, a reasonable rating.
Yo, check out how they made her though. So what they did was they filmed the scenes with her, right? She's on set, so there's no like wacky, like I'm talking to a tennis ball on a stick. The actors get the real reactions and everything like that. But then they also had all these like hidden GoPros and stuff like that to get extra footage so they could track her really accurately.
Oh.
And then they made a real 3D model of her, completely CG. And then what they did was they bifurcated that. They cut it in half, like in that movie 13 Ghosts, where that glass comes down and chops that dude. Anyway, so
what a reference.
And then they took what they call the back shell, and so if you look at like a wine bottle and you look through the wine bottle, you could see the label from the back.
Yeah.
They have that of her, and they put that into the scene. So when you're looking at her and there's other lights are bright, you can see kind of through her a little bit.
You can see her butt from the front.
Ass so fat you can see it from the front. My wife says that all the time.
That's so funny.
That is really cool.
Because they're filming the scene with the actors in the scene, that means that Ana de Armas, who plays Joy, her shadow is cast in the scene. So then that means that the hologram can cast shadows. Okay? Even though she's a hologram, she's casting shadows.
Yeah.
So then later when they have their like menage a trois thing, that means that when Joy's hands are on top of Mariette's hands, they have to cast shadows on each other's hands. Yeah. But those actors' hands those actors weren't in the scene together. It's Kay and Mackenzie Davis's character. Then they film it again with Joy and Kay. And then in the final cut, they just take Joy and Kay and they put them on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
So how are they going to put shadows, the shadows from Joy's hands onto Mackenzie Davis's
Why wouldn't
hands?
they just remove the shadows?
So when their hands are melded over each other, what they had to do was make full CG just hands. Like there's a shot behind Kay's heads where like they're rubbing back his head. They had to do just CG hands just so they could render the shadows, then take those shadows and put them on the real hands.
That's dumb.
Stupid double negative.
No, that's stupid. Because like holograms shouldn't cast shadows unless there's some like physical, maybe.
No, dude. The shadows are part of the hologram.
Oh.
Here's a weird thing. Apparently, Joy is. I don't know if this is true. I read that Joy is supposedly named after the slang porn acronym JOI, jerk off instruction, which is like
What?
like a genre of porn where I guess like the actor or actress is like telling the viewer what to do.
Right.
Do you guys think that is possible? It seems like a retronym to
That
me.
seems stupid.
Sounds like they named her Joy and then they just like, oh, whoa, it's just like that.
Well, who said that?
I just read it somewhere online.
I do.
The internet.
I do
I don't
love
think that was-
that Kay is like, I guess my name's Joe because that's what Joy has called me.
Yeah.
And then there's that scene once Joy has died and on the bridge and he sees the big advertisement version of Joy that's naked and like it's this great scene of being like, oh, like the person I love was just this corporate thing that was sold to me, and she calls him Joe, and you're like, oh yeah, now that name fits because it's like a prostitute. That's what they call their client is a Joe. Because like when he first says his name is Joe, it always bothers me. I'm like, ew, what a weird,
I know.
what a stupid name.
It bothered me too because I'm like, if I was in this position and someone's like, well, a real boy needs a name, and he's like doesn't respond, and then she's like, Joe. I'm like, no. My name is absolutely not Joe. No offense to anybody named Joe out there, but I'm like,
How about
No.
Casey?
Yeah. No, I'd be like, I am Aragorn.
Arnold. Yeah.
I'm gonna be Aragorn.
Your name starts with a K. Just keep the K. That's at his like low point of his arc, like in the deep act 2, where it seems like there's no way you can achieve what your goals are. And I guess his inward journey, as it were, is, am I real? Am I human?
Right.
So that's where he gets this girlfriend. That feels really real. He has these memories that he thinks are not implants. They're real memories. That feels really real. And then by that point, it's all gone to crap.
Gone.
Yeah.
But then that's the point that I think part of it, and they don't really tell you on the nose, but that he feels this immense grief and this immense sense of loss, I think is what propels him to be like, oh, I am alive. I have purpose. Like I have a soul that I can feel these things instead of just feeling nothing.
I really like that line from Fraser where she's like standing up for something is the most human thing you can do. That was amazing. That was the most succinct and nice way to set up his
from Fraser.
final push.
I thought you said from Frasier.
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer.
I'm like Frasier, one of the most inspiring sitcoms of all time.
Toss salad and scrambled.
Niles is like a personification of a whippet dog. You know those whippets?
Wow, yeah, I thought you were talking about Whippets, the other one. Ryan Gosling. What did you guys think of him in this movie? Because I wrote down that I thought he was perfect as a mix of like a kind of robotic, unfeeling replicant and someone who is like struggling with the like emergence of emotions in themselves.
Well, I think that's a really hard role to play, and like very few people can pull it off. Like you think of Spock, and Spock kind of is in that same situation where Leonard Nimoy has to play this very straight, logical being who has a very complex set of emotions going on underneath, and you have to display that while still being like stoic.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard because then you see like Zachary Quinto do it, and like he doesn't pull it off quite as well, and it's like a little bit overacted, and so it's
a little more
really.
emotional.
Really hard.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan Gosling absolutely nails it.
Ryan Gosling just like that's kind of who he is.
Yeah.
Almost in every role, but they just slotted him in perfectly.
Well, that's kind of why I was saying he was perfect for this role because like memes have been made about his ability to, his acting ability just being basically like I stand there and have just like a blank stare on my face and then like maybe I move one part of my face and that's the performance. But I feel like that's what made him so perfect for this. But then, like, as you were saying, like, as he's discovering that he does have emotions, that he is a person, it's just, like, seeing kind of more of that come out. And, man, I love the part where he's talking to Anna Stelline, the real child, and he's, like, apparently discovers that he's the child or whatever. He's not the child, but that's where he thinks he
the memory is real.
Right. He thinks that the memory is real. He just like is looking down and just like explodes. He's like, God damn. And it's just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, that's cool. It's
I
like, not only do I have emotions, I'm valid in feeling them now, because he's such a repressed character who's like, if you have emotions, they're fake and contrived, and they're not valid anyway because you're a skin job.
I didn't even really get that the baseline test where he comes in to do the baseline test every time he comes back from a mission or whatever. The prompts. I mean, this might be just because I was stupid. I'm not this isn't a
no. That scene is one of the most confusing things on the first view
because it seems like just a bunch of random words, but actually it's like all of these emotional prompts meant to like trigger emotional responses.
The structure of it is like, say something provocative.
Yeah.
The interviewer says something provocative. Do you know what it's like to touch a human hand?
Yeah.
Do they keep you in a cell? And then after he says the provocative line, he says a line that needs to repeat it back. So, do they keep you in a cage? Linked or interlinked? And then he has to say interlinked.
Yeah.
And then it's the calmness in his voice that gives away whether or not he's
that was also a thing that made me like angry at the system. I was like, come on, they're people. They're people, damn it. Yeah.
This is the kind of movie that makes me realize that video games haven't surpassed movies in every way, shape, and form.
Contrary to David's beliefs, many a carpool ran from David about this.
Well, I think like video games are in a huge period of transition where they're going from being very simple mechanical ventures to complex storytelling machines that can convey really as much as a movie can, if not more. Like you think of something like Last of Us or God of War, and like they're telling their stories in very sophisticated ways. And in my head, I'm like, The Last of Us is the ultimate zombie story. There is no better movie, TV show, comic book, video game that's better than The Last of Us for telling a zombie story. But then I watch this and I'm like, Cyberpunk 2077 will not be more sophisticated than Blade Runner 2049. It will not.
Doesn't matter if the number's higher.
Well, but I think that's also because it has to appeal to the Call of Duty bros, sort of, Like
that's fair.
Cyberpunk 2077 isn't like a smart man's game or whatever.
And I hope that it will. I hope.
Huh?
I mean, yeah, you're right. This is all speculation. And maybe
if it's like The Witcher, there'll probably be some allusions to deeper themes and stuff. But like for the most part, it's like you're just tearing your way through a city, blowing stuff up, hacking people, making blades come out of your arms.
The altered carbon of video games.
right, exactly.
Yeah, it's good.
Exactly.
It's pretty darn good.
Yeah, Cyberpunk 27 is the altered carbon of games. I love that. Yeah.
Can we talk about love?
Yeah.
What is love?
Don't
hurt me.
What's it got to do with it?
She's a badass.
I love
What's the actor name? Sylvia Hook? I think she's Dutch. I saw an interview with her. She's so different than Love, IRL. She's like, I hate fighting. I don't like moving very much. I'm a very gentle person.
I loved how she's got such this intense look, and I actually wrote, I'm like, her outfits are badass. I love her outfits.
It tells a story. So
I love her ponytail.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I didn't realize is that at the beginning, all her outfits are white and clean lines, very, very sophisticated. And it's because like she's got a very pure sense of mind. Her purpose is please Wallace.
Right.
But as things are getting harder and she's getting like more descent into this kind of like darker, desperate place, her outfits get darker and like less clean, less defined.
Right.
And I love that they tell the story that way.
She's a reflection character to Kay. She's going through similar things to him, but she handles them differently. She's the opposite. She always says to Kay things that reinforce the fact that they're not human, that they're objects. She says, bad dog.
Yeah.
And then she says, I'm the best one.
Yeah.
I'm the best one. I'm a product. I'm an object.
When
I'm the best one.
When she thinks she's beaten him and she's just like, I'm the best one. Like she swims away like, haha, I gotcha.
She's so badass.
Daddy likes me best. Yeah, I love that she's kind of a foil to Kay because like she's got that same sort of stoicism and like some emotions burning underneath, but they're not like they're struggling to come out. She doesn't know how to express herself emotionally. So like every time that she kills somebody, she cries.
Yeah.
Like every time that she gets super intense, like she cries like a single tear. And I'm just like, what is that about? But it's like, oh, that's because the only way that she knows how to exist in this world is through violence and through like forcing other people to not necessarily get her way, but to get Wallace's way. And there's like a part of her that's like this is wrong or whatever, or like or trying to express something, but she can't express it, so like it just comes out physically as a tear.
It makes you wonder if she has memories, because they say that the memories are there to ground them emotionally.
Right.
But she's so weird emotionally, and
she probably has some like very specific tailored memories to make her that way or whatever.
And I love how she's like on the sales team. Like her first shot is a conference call, being like, well, you probably don't need really high consciousness replicants because you're doing a mining operation, but we can give you pleasure models.
Yeah, yeah.
I love how all the side characters are so weird. They're so weird looking. He uses that dude that Denis Villeneuve always has that one guy. His name is David Dasmalchian. He plays Coco. The character's name is Coco.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually he's kind of racist against Kay.
Right.
Yeah, he says like, oh, maybe
he's like skin. Maybe it's like a skin job or something. He's like, sorry.
Oh yeah, he says something like not bad for a skin job or like emotional for a skin job. But then after that, he does another dig at him.
Yeah,
because he's saying, how did that? Where did the kid go? And he's like, maybe Sapper ate it. Like they're cannibals.
Yeah,
that guy is so weird looking, man.
Yeah. He's the one role that I remember that guy from. He's done a lot more, but like I remember him as being the kind of the Joker stand-in in The Dark Knight. He's one of the guy that dresses up as a cop. He's like one of Joker's goons.
He always plays like a mentally unstable person. He's in in Prisoners.
Oh,
do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to see Prisoners. You got to watch all Denis Villeneuve's movies in a weekend. Do it.
I'll try. Well, okay. So there are a couple of just things I wanted to bring attention to. They're not like deep things or whatever. But when Kay goes to get the data from Wallace Corporation, they go into the like the more secure the archives or whatever that no one's been there in a while, and they store data in these glass balls.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was cool because right now they're doing a lot of research. Microsoft in particular is doing research with like storing data in glass, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Like they figured it out, you know.
What do they call them in the movie? Bearings? Are they called?
Bearings. Because they spin around.
There's another thing that's weird in that scene is she's like, this is where we keep all the junk. And I just thought it was weird that she said junk. But then the door doesn't open.
Yeah.
And she has to like kind of force it open. And I was like, why do they do that? I think they just to set up her physicality?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of it, but it's also to show that no one goes back here.
Right.
These are like the forgotten archives. And this door hasn't opened in 10 years, 15 years.
I think that's a great example of how tight. Like, I know I said it's too long, but like the movie makes the most of these things where they will show something happening and it's happening for multiple reasons. Like it's not indulgent in the way that they're like, I wanted to have, you know, a scene where she punches somebody and caves his head in just because, like, for the sake of it. Yeah. Like when Kay gets home and Joy is like, oh, I got a present for you or whatever, and then like Mariette, the prostitute, comes in and he's like, oh, I got your present. I want us to be together. I'm like, is this gonna be like a titillating sex scene or whatever, like it just for the sake of it? But it's like, no, it's very important. Mariette has to be there in order for her to have that emotional connection later with Kay, and so she can put the tracker in his stuff. Yep. That's how they find him later. Yep. So it's just like there's so many things where they resist the urge to just have a scene for the sake of it. It's always in service of something, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
The next thing that kind of bothered me was, well, not bothered me. The next thing that I thought was interesting was, why does the movie pretend that Joy sees out of her eyes?
What do you mean?
She's a hologram.
Oh,
so, like,
Joy. Yeah.
Joy, the
Yeah. So what do you
AI.
mean? How do we know?
So
that?
like at one point he's like looking into he's reading the DNA or whatever. He's looking in through the little goggles, and Joy comes in and like kind of phases through him and is like also looking down into it. But it's like you're just light. You can't see in there.
My explanation would be that her programming is to act as convincing as possible, and so her programming isn't so that she can see it; it's to convince him that she's looking at it.
But she reacts to what she's seeing in there.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of her programming, is to be like.
But how does she know?
To convince him.
She can't see.
Well,
she can't see in there.
Well, this thing has sensors that I'm guessing.
I found a plot hole.
There's more. There's more plot holes than that, actually. Like, for example, how the hell does Love break into the LAPD twice?
Yeah.
She just easily gets into that like mortuary and steals the bones, and then later on she breaks into Joshi's office and kills her twice. And the LAPD is like one of the biggest buildings in the city. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's full of cops.
For the mortuary, I always figure that it's probably owned by some corporation, and it's like a separate building, and it's its own thing, and it's probably got less security because of this corporate world that we're in. Whereas the LAPD is more secure, and so she only has to break into that once.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways you could explain that, I guess. None of which are super satisfying, but like, oh, Wallace Corporation is so powerful that they can just do that, and then the police are too scared to do anything about it, or like she has something that scrambles the cameras or something. I don't know.
Why do you think she kills? Why doesn't she kill Kay in Vegas? She just kind of maims him and leaves him to die. And then they take off.
Apparently that was going to be a longer scene where she just like freaking beats him to like within an inch of his life, and then she's like, he's basically dead. So then she just takes off. Like she does actually the same thing later, but they cut a bunch of the fight scene. So it would make a little more sense if she like beat him to within an inch of his life and then took off. But
even then, she still like lives the opportunity. And you think as an efficient killing machine, she would just pop off to in his head.
I think she's also kind of a psychopath though, and she enjoys it, and she likes the idea that like I beat you, and I want you to know that I beat you as you bleed out.
That rings true to me.
Yeah.
My favorite shot with her is when she's actually saving Kay's life by doing those drone strikes. Like suddenly that those strikes come out of nowhere, and then it cuts to her just like reclining on a chair,
getting
just
her
like
nails done,
just luxuriously getting her nails.
That was great.
Nails done by the a cameo from someone who makes the eyes in the first Blade Runner.
Oh, it's him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But I just love how it's just so sweet. She's just like fire.
I was
this is awesome.
Yeah. It's like it's no big. And then the other thing was, this kind of goes into the thing I was talking earlier about how the world kind of bothers me. I wrote, the visuals are obviously amazing, but like, where are the plants? So, like, do people just forget about
Well, they can't exist in this world.
Yeah, but people don't want greenery anymore. People just change.
It's too expensive, man. Like that little thing of wood would have bought him a real horse.
Yeah, no, but I just mean regular plants. Like people don't have house plants.
It's too hard.
There's
they
no
can't
parks.
Survive.
People
They can't survive.
Random thing about that scene where he gets
There's no parks board anymore.
He gets the wood like checked out and like carbon dated by that guy who just like speaks in a weird voice and has like that really weird face.
That's the I'm the captain now guy.
Is it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie.
Me neither.
I haven't seen that movie, but I was watching a movie on the weekend and I was like, that's the guy. His name is Barkat Abdi. And it was this movie called Good Time with Robert Pattinson.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a random security guard character like gets the crap beat out of him. I was like, that's the guy from Blade Runner. I know it. It was. I didn't know he's the I'm the captain guy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm the Blade Runner now.
Do you guys want to hear a weird connection from this movie to the previous one? So the production designer on this film, who was nominated for an Academy Award and I don't believe won.
No. They lost to
Dunkirk? No.
It might have
Shape
been
of Water. Shape of Water.
Shape
for
of
sure.
Water.
Shape of
for
Water.
production design?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Shape of Water.
That's a mistake.
That's a crazy year, by the way. Like Dunkirk, Shape of Water, this, Get Out, Lady Bird.
And of all things, Shape of Water wins.
Yeah. Shape of Water. It's pretty good,
I
but
didn't
it's
watch it.
not spectacular.
I didn't like it.
This is spectacular.
It was okay.
Okay, so the production designer on this, how he's connected to the previous one was he was one of the art department people on One from the Heart, Francis Ford Coppola's Las Vegas musical, which is a complete piece of shit. But he commissioned all of the neon signs for this Vegas strip that was all set.
Oh, yeah.
And then those neon signs became the neon signs from Blade Runner. And so that's how like those two got connected. But then that guy became the production designer for 2049, and it became a full circle.
Oh, dang, dude.
Amazing.
There were no neon signs in this Vegas. They were just erotic statues,
Thank goodness.
which was kind of cool. I'm just like, oh, this makes sense that Vegas would just like put up a bunch of naked woman statues.
This movie has such a good variety of styles because it's like there's some stuff that's very much like the old one, but then there's stuff like the desert with like the gradient orange red with the like the signs.
And in every style, they find a way to make the atmosphere full
Yeah.
of just reflective stuff. Because it's
Right.
like Denis didn't want it to be rain again. He wanted to make its own. So famously, he always says he made it snow because I'm from Canada. So yeah,
I know the snow.
I relate to the snow.
Yeah.
And then in the desert, they have all this just the particle, like the dust storm kind of look.
I mean, in one sense, I find it kind of boring, but in another sense, I appreciate how so many of these different environments in the movie are just like monotone colors, basically. Like the city is just like gray, Vegas is orange. In the end, with all the snow, it's kind of like bluish, I guess.
I appreciate Harrison Ford in this movie.
Yeah.
When this movie was coming out, I hadn't even seen the first one. I was like, oh, I guess this is gonna be okay. And then I heard that Harrison Ford was going to be in it, and I was like, crap, this is going to be shitty just like Star Wars. And then I was like, maybe he'll just have a cameo. Then he's on the poster big time, and I'm like, oh, no, this is going to suck. I actually really liked him in this movie.
Well, when Harrison Ford cares, he's pretty good. He just doesn't ever care.
And his lines were good too.
Yeah, it's really good. I wish, not just for this movie, but for all movies, that they could not give away spoilers like that in the posters.
I know.
Just like
they have to.
I know they have to, but like
imagine like
T2
T2 when T2 came out.
Yeah.
When Arnold's walking down that hallway and then the box of roses is a shotgun and then he doesn't shoot John.
Yeah, what
like,
a twist!
Nobody knew. I don't think anyone knew that. I don't think that was in the trailer.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like a necessary evil because
You gotta
no
get
one's
bumps
gonna
in
go.
seats.
Yeah, no one's gonna go
Nobody
if they think
didn't
it's
go.
just like a spin-off. If they think it's what is it?
A reboot.
Born. What was the one with Jeremy Renner?
Born
Legacy.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Born yesterday.
Yeah. They need to know that Harrison Ford is gonna play Han Solo once again in this.
Is
movie.
there an 80s movie that Harrison Ford was in where he hasn't reprised his role 40 years later? God damn, man.
I mean, I guess it's all right. I don't want to say this is Han Solo because it's not quite. Deckard is like more boring than Han Solo. He doesn't have as much
more
interesting.
understated.
Yeah, more understated.
Well, no, he's not.
And more brutal, too.
He's more well read. Read Treasure Island, clearly.
True.
Well,
mightn't you have a bit of cheese?
You don't say
always
mightn't
shoots
enough.
first.
Yeah.
They say that a lot in Barry Lyndon, a very good Kubrick movie. We should cover some Kubrick movies sometime, hey?
Well, we can do that in one of our director polls.
No one's going to pick.
They would never pick.
No
Barry
one's
Lyndon.
going to
It'll
pick.
be
Barry Lyndon's sweet,
like
though.
it'll be
Clockwork
The Shining.
Orange.
The Shining for sure.
Yeah,
Clockwork Orange,
yeah.
Shining, or 2001. I'd say The Shining.
And put
would
Barry
win.
Lyndon in there just so no one can pick it.
Yeah.
Well, what should we do next week? It's Edgar Wright's birthday this Saturday.
I feel like we promised people
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club.
But it's John Hughes' birthday was like 2 months ago.
Who
cares
who
about that?
I care.
And then we have to wait a year.
I want to send the podcast to John Hughes as a present.
So I think next week we're going to do Breakfast Club. We promised Breakfast Club. We should do it. We have to deliver
I'm
on the
down.
Much
promises.
shorter movie.
Is it? 90 minutes or something?
It's like 2 hours.
You can fit 2 Breakfast Clubs. Breakfast Club is 2 hours, you think?
Probably just under. I don't know exactly, but I guess 150, 155.
All right, guys. That's the David's Bet of the Week. We'll have to look that up later to see how well he did. If you guys want to suggest what movies you want us to cover, then hit us up on Twitter at Carpool Critics or email us carpoolcriticspodcast@gmail.com.
James will reply. Maybe.
It's usually me. Log into the Twitter, you jerks.
I reply to people on the Twitter account from my own account.
David, you're always watching movies all weekend. Tweet about them when you watch them. That's what I do.
So embarrassed. It's not social media savvy.
I'm just embarrassed. Well, I guess there's nothing else to say except love you so much, and I said it this time.
See you later.
Bye.
David just doesn't say anything. He doesn't have a phrase.
You gotta have a phrase, David.
Sham bam ba doo dow.
Zippity doo dah.